Hi everybody, this is Cheryl and I wanted to get you started on crochet today. The main things I wanted to talk to you today about is the supplies you need for crochet. The main supplies you need is yarn, a hook, scissors, a ruler, and a pattern. Okay, so 5 things. I'm going to talk to you very quickly about hooks. This case I bought in 1983. It has your basic crochet hooks in it. These on this side here, these blue ones, are aluminum. These over on this side are steel, okay? And they range from size 14. And this one is a size, oh my gosh, K, okay? Your main hook, or main hooks rather, are your F and your G. When I done research on it, they suggested an I, but to be quite honest with you, I have never used an I. So, F or a G, those are the size you need. These are your basic hooks. However, nowadays, they actually have these with the handle, with the rubber handle on them. I actually quit crocheting for quite a few years because I have arthritis and it hurt to crochet holding these hooks. So now they have these with the rubber handle on it and I'm crocheting again. They really make a difference. The hooks, as I said, my smallest one is a 14. It's aluminum. It's very, very tiny. This is my biggest one. This is size S, and it's used for like fabrics. And we'll get more into that later. Your size, the smaller ones, this is the 14. I'm going to try to get it up here to where you can see it. That would be used for sewing thread. And I have made things with sewing thread. And I have used these little tiny hooks. Your hooks, F and G. That's your main thing about the hooks. I would go with aluminum for the F or the G. Simply because they just seem to work the best. You can get bamboo, you can get wood, you can get, I even have one that's fiberglass. I use it for nothing more than decoration. I've never used it. I don't know how it crochets with, but I thought this was really cool, so, yeah. But your main one is aluminum. Now, for yarn, on your yarn, like I said, you can crochet with anything from fabric to sewing thread. But your main thing is yarn. Your yarn, the main sizes is, if I can pull it apart here, this is the main one. This is 4-ply. I don't even know if I can get that apart enough to where you can see it. But it has 4 threads in it. Okay, and that's why it's called 4-ply, because it has 4 threads. Okay, can you see that? They also have sports weight, and they have baby yarn. There's also fingering yarn, but I have never used fingering yarn. I've used baby yarn. I've used sports weight. The baby yarn is the smallest. It's mainly used for baby projects and for smaller items. But 4-ply is mainly what you want to use, and you want to go ahead and get 4-ply for when you start. This is a bigger skein of yarn. Right here's how many ounces that is in this skein, and that you want to pay attention to, because when you're making a project, that will give you the information you need on how much yarn, and I'll get into that once we learn how. Also pay attention to your die lot. The die lot will, if the number changes, the color of your yarn will actually change. The shade will be a little bit different. So pay attention to that. Right here is what you want to look for. You see it's number 4. That's the, tells you it's 4-ply yarn. So then you also need a good pair of scissors. And for those that have watched my cross stitch videos, these are my cross stitch needles too, my scissors too. Honestly, on a ruler or something to measure with, honestly, go ahead and get a tape measure, because you can use a little ruler like this or even a 12-inch ruler, but in the long run the tape measure is going to work better, because later on when you're doing projects and you need to measure a bigger piece, you know, it's best to just go ahead and have a tape measure. Okay, and you need this to measure your gauge, and I'll explain that when we get into this, but you're going to need a tape measure or some kind of measuring device. Later on down the road, we'll talk more about other things you need. Pattern books, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, go ahead and get a beginner's learn how to crochet book. The reason being is that the patterns that you find in those books will actually give you patterns to try out every stitch that they tell you about in that book. So if you get a basic learn how to crochet book, you're going to be able to try the different stitches in that book. Okay, and I have one, and I select my books based on the patterns I like. I bought this because there were several patterns in it that I liked. I didn't need to learn how to crochet book, but I really like these patterns. So yeah, you know, it's going to give you all the instructions you need on everything on how to crochet, but the patterns in the book are actually going to give you a chance to try out all the stitches they teach you about. Those are the main things that you need. Some sort of a pattern, your hooks, your yarn, your scissors, and your ruler. There are other things that later on you will want to Angel, can I borrow that counter? That you can get a counter. This is one type of counter. I've had this for a long time. This is the one I use. This is another one that I've had for a long time. I don't even know if they make these anymore. I have not been able to find them. I wanted to get a second one, but I have not been able to find one. But this is a very handy little gadget that I really like. Here you go. Thank you. She's using that for a knitting project right now. The other thing is markers. Now, these are old ones. I've had these since 1983. I bought these in 1983. They're just little markers. I tried to find some of these. They do make markers, but they're a different style. And I have not tried the new style. So, but I can show you later how to do markers with just pieces of thread or pieces of yarn. The only other thing you're going to need is a sewing needle. This is actually a yarn needle. And we'll get into all that kind of stuff later on down the road. When you actually do a project, we'll get into the more detailed stuff that you may need. And I've created some pretty unique things in the past for my crochet projects. But the main thing, yarn, hook, pattern, scissors, and some sort of tape measure or other measuring device. So those are the main things you need. You get those together, and my next video I will do how to get started on crochet. Alright, you all have a nice day.